speed. Well, that was a failed bolt.
What up, people? I'm RGveda, and you are watching a Dota2Pro.com hero guide on Kunkka. This is the third weekly hero guide that we've done, and I hope that you will enjoy it. Kunkka the Admiral is a melee strength hero treated as a ganker slash semi-carry and good initiator. The majority of his damage is dealt in burst form, making him differ from most other semi-carry heroes. As he is a strength hero, he has a natural tankiness from a high strength gain per level, which he can use to his benefit by being more aggressive earlier on than some other melee heroes. Kunkka can fit into a lot of lineups, but should not be picked as the team's only carry or only initiator. He can, however, be played on many lanes. He can also solo a side lane or mid, but generally is at his best when played on the side lane paired with a ranged stunner, so that he can easily land his abilities to net some early kills. Kunkka has a variety of unique skills, consisting of 2 skill shots, an anti-escape mechanism, and a passive which procs on his auto attacks. His skills all combine very well together to give him a strong presence both in team battles and on the lanes. His damage with some farm can be absolutely devastating, mainly due to the nature of his passive. With the correct items, it's not too strange to see Kunkka kill a low HP support hero with just one swing of his mighty sword. However, to continue to have a strong presence within team battles in the late game, Kunkka needs a lot of farm, which is often better given to any hard carries you may have on your team. Kunkka's weaknesses include a weak lasting presence in team battles, mainly due to long spell cooldowns and a low attack speed. He also suffers from a low mana pool with proportionally high mana cost on his abilities, meaning you must be very selective of when you use your spells, as missing them may render you useless if a battle breaks out. He can also struggle early on in the lane versus a lot of heroes who have strong range harass if he does not have a ranged lane partner. It is mainly for these reasons that Kunkka is very rarely seen in competitive play. But don't be disheartened. Kunkka is a fantastically fun hero that is massively rewarding to master, and can be a real asset to his team if he's played well. So let's talk about his abilities. Kunkka's first ability is called Torn. This is Kunkka's main disable, and is very effective for ganking, harassing, escaping, or initiating. Wherever the spell is cast, with a massive 1500 range, a 225 AoE Torrent of Water will erupt from the ground after 2 seconds, throwing enemies into the air, dealing damage based on the spell's level, of which part is dealt immediately and the rest dealt over a short time. When they landed, a 30% slow is also applied, which lasts longer for higher levels. The actual disable lasts for 1.53 seconds while they're in the air, and the spell's cooldown is a long 12 seconds at all levels. As the ability has a long arming time, it's best used when teamed with another ally's stun. The effect it plays on the floor is only visible to you and your allies. Your enemies can see your animation as you cast the spell, but they won't be able to see where you've placed it on the ground. This can lead to great mind games, as your enemy tries to predict where you have placed it. Advanced players will use this knowledge to place the torrent where they feel their enemies will juke to, rather than the obvious route. Managing to consecutively land this skill is what separates great Kunkka players from average ones. His second ability is his passive, Tidebringer. Tidebringer is Kunkka's signature spell. Every 16, 12, 8, or 4 seconds based on spell level, your sword will appear to glow, which means that the next auto attack you do will splash for 100% with an increasing AoE based on level and increasing bonus damage based on level. What I mean by splash is that the damage of your auto attack plus the bonus damage will be dealt in the AoE area directly behind the target which is auto attacked. As this ability is a passive, it requires no mana to use, and the cooldown does not use when denying creeps. There are 2 things to note about this ability. Firstly, only the targets which you actually auto attack will have their armor applied to reduce the damage. Everything else hit by the splash will receive the full damage. Therefore, you want to actually let the splash damage hit your intended target, not your auto attack. This can be accomplished by auto attacking a creep, or a lower profile target in team fights. The second thing to note is that this ability stacks with items such as Shadow Blade and Battle Fury. Battle Fury's 35% cleave stacks so that you effectively deal 135% damage in the splash zone, while Shadow Blade's extra damage also stacks to be applied in the splash zone, and so can critical strikes received with Daedalus. It is for this reason that this ability can absolutely devastate teams, with the possibility of doing over 1000 true damage to all enemies in an instant, if you're lucky enough to get a proc. In lane, the spell can be used massively to your advantage to harass the enemy laners. When Tidebringer is off cooldown, you can auto attack an enemy creep to last hit it, and if you position yourself correctly so that you are facing your enemies, they will get hit by the splash, effectively giving you manaless free harassment. His third ability is called X marks the spot. When this ability is cast on a hero, an X will appear on the ground where they were standing when you casted the spell. Then after 4 seconds at max level, or if the spell is activated again, the hero will return to the X location. The effect can be cancelled if the target becomes magic immune. The ability has a very long cooldown of 30 seconds, so must be used very wisely. The return on second press is also not instantaneous due to casting animations, so it may take a while to get used to. This is a very unique ability which can be utilized in a couple of ways. The most common use is to stop enemies from escaping. Once you've marked them, they will return to the spot after the allotted time no matter what. Even if they teleport, blink, or if you just lose vision, they will always return. The ability can be used on yourself and allies to potentially juke the enemy team and escape them if they are chasing you. The most useful application of this ability, however, is by combining it with their other spells. If you cast X marks the spot on an enemy, you can then cast your Torrent where they will be returning and trigger the spell before the Torrent goes off to ensure a 100% chance of hitting them with Torrent, as well as to keep them closer to your team so you can grab an important kill. His final ability and ultimate is Ghost Ship. On ability use, a Ghost Ship is summoned that travels in the direction that is casted from yourself. The boat that precedes travels 1000 units from its originating position behind you and crashes into the ground, dealing 500 magic damage and a 400 AoE at max level, and stunning all enemies that are hit for 1 second. The boat will always travel the full distance even if casted next to you, meaning you have to stand far back enough from the fight to effectively cast it. In addition, any allies which the ship passes through will gain a buff, increasing their move speed by 10%, and all allied heroes will only take 50% of the incoming damage for the 7 seconds at max level, as well as take the other 50% after the 7 seconds. The damage dealt after this time, however, is not lethal, meaning that if the damage dealt to them during this period would have killed them, instead, after 7 seconds they will only drop down to 1 HP. It will take time and practice, as well as good prediction to land a perfect Ghost Ship. However, this ability, if used correctly, can massively turn around team fights, or serve as a devastating initiating ability. My recommended skill build is as follows. If you're ganking at level 1, get Torrent. Otherwise, get Tidebringer. Max Tidebringer early for the decreased cooldown and extra damage. Tidebringer is your main source of harass and damage in lane, and is extremely useful seeing as it costs no mana. Max your Torrent second and your ultimate whenever possible. X marks the spot is max last. However, if you're dying a lot, sometimes it can be better to get stats over it, but this is rare. The only exception to this is if you intend to gank a lot early on and won't be spending a lot of time in lane, in which case you should max Torrent ahead of Tidebringer. So let's go over some items. Being a strength hero, some early strength stats can be extremely helpful, offering him a larger HP pool, damage, and HP regen for a very cheap price. A starting build can go one of two ways. If you know you will be harassed a lot, usually by ranged heroes, then getting a stout shield can help a lot, and will generally be built later into a vanguard. However, in most lanes, you'll want the early stats to help last hit, as well as give good early survival. I always get a wand because it's a fantastic item offering health and mana for clutch situations and some cheap stats. It also makes use of those branches you should have bought. After this, your goals will depend on your team composition, the enemy team, and how you want to play. If the enemy team has a lot of nukes, an early vanguard can help a lot with some great survivability and regen. Whereas if you intend to gank a lot, an early urn can be fantastic, also helping you with your early mana problems. Urn of Shadows gives you charges on killing an enemy, which can be used to heal yourself, an ally, or damage an enemy. As for boosts, generally if you feel you need more HP, power treads are the best option, though most of the time, I personally prefer phase boosts for the added speed to escape, as well as the damage to help with passive. Really, this one I find comes down to personal preference. If you have good farm, you can go one of two ways. A Battle Fury stacks with your passive, but is mainly picked up to massively increase your farming. Get this if you are your team's main carry and source of late damage. I personally prefer to get a Shadow Blade as early as possible, as it helps make up for the fact that Kunkka has no built-in escape mechanism. And again, the damage and bonus damage proc are great for his passive. Just beware that the item can be countered by other items such as Sentry Wards, a gem, dust, and abilities such as Slardar's ultimate. From here, if the enemy has a lot of magic and disables, a Black King bar can help greatly. While if you are looking to be the initiator with massive damage, Daedalus can accomplish just that, or even just the early part, Crystallis. Late game you have a lot of options. If the enemy is physical damage, Heavy Assault Cures can help a lot, and a Heart of Tarask is also a great tanky item that will help you in the battles while also giving you some more damage. You also have a few more options such as Skadi, Satanic, and lastly Divine Rapier. Kunkka is one of the few heroes where a Divine Rapier can actually be a good pickup. A massive warning has to go with this item though. While giving you insane damage, it will be dropped off if you die, giving the enemy team the ability to pick it up. Games can be lost by buying this item and generally it is not recommended. So let's go over what you should be doing with Kunkka. I will explain this from the viewpoint of treating him as an initiator and semi-carry. Early game, it's your job to get as many last hits as possible while utilizing your passive to harass the enemy laner or laners. Kunkka, however, is not a hard carry, so don't be overly greedy. It's a good idea to let your ally get some pre-kills so they can help the team. When going for kills, generally you will want to let an ally stun first to set up the torrent, aiming it on them but a little bit towards the direction they will run to escape as the arming time is quite long. Whenever possible, get kills and don't be afraid to get in an auto attack. If an enemy is escaping on low life, remember that you can always auto attack a creep close to you using the splash damage to kill the hero. Always carry a teleport scroll, and be ready to teleport to towers to help your allies. Your spells can turn fights around massively, but just remember to preserve mana in lane. Once you have used your initial burst, you should remain in team fights even if you're not doing great damage. Do this just to serve as a distraction and nuisance to the enemies, so they don't focus down your allies. Remember, you're naturally quite tanky and can take some punishment. So that's all for now. I hope you've enjoyed this guide and found it to be useful. Just remember, Kunkka is a hero that can be quite hard to learn and may involve a lot of trial and error to land your skills, especially your ultimate. My advice is to hop on a practice game and have a play around so you can get a feel for his skills before you enter a real game.